Hey there. Today I have a brand new episode of what I'm calling the top 30. And normally you'd be looking at a list of comic books, but this is even better. We have the top 30-minute conversation where I will be bringing in a guest, and it'll be guaranteed, hands down, the best 30 minutes of your comic book day. And my guest this time is FlipFlop Comics. And there he is, Gabriel from FlipFlop Comics. How you doing?
Hey, Brendan, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I appreciate you being here. Good luck to you over the next 30 minutes. I appreciate you being here.
Yeah,
Before we dive into some things, why don't we talk a little bit about FlipFlop Comics and kind of like where people can find you. We're going to dive into some of more of your background and some of the details around your store. But would love to give the audience a little bit of background about you first.
sure. So, my name's Gabriel. I'm the owner and operator of FlipFlop Comics. You can find us at flipflopcomics.com, and we're also on Instagram, also at FlipFlop Comics. I started the store about 3 years ago, but I've been collecting and kind of selling on and off for the past, 20 years. Well, I've been collecting since I was a child, but selling on and off for about the past 15 to 20 years, but officially made it a business 3 years ago.
Awesome, and I think that's going to be the topic of this is my personal fascination with selling comic books online. It is something that I have struggled with. I've tried different things. I have tried two different Shopify-based store, which FlipFlop Comics is based on Shopify, right?
Yes,
Right.
it is. Yeah.
So I have tried that twice. I think it's a solid platform. No issues with the platform, but just the whole process of it from being a collector to establishing the store, those are some of the questions that we're going to get into, and to get your perspective around the challenges of doing that. And also what I'm interested in hearing is you mentioned collecting comics for uh, pretty much your entire life. Like,
Yeah.
what is it like now that you're older, and how do you balance the store, being a collector, keeping up with the times, and so forth? And so we're going to dive into all of that. However,
Yes.
I have to start with the most important question. And this is a question that I ask all of my guests, uh,
Okay.
and with you being the first one, obviously, I'm one
Yeah.
of one.
All
Uh,
right.
the first question: direct or newsstand?
Uh, Direct, because I like to see as much as the cover art as possible.
That is correct.
Yeah.
That is the correct answer. All
Yes.
right. Awesome. Great answer. The correct answer. And now we need to get into some of the more spicier areas of the
Okay.
show here. And I wanted to get your take on this new CGC. I don't even know if it's live or official, but it's like this announcement.
Yeah.
I kind of call it maybe a distraction from all the things, but I'm talking about the 9.9 pre-screen. I
Yeah.
would love to get your thoughts on this new tier of pre-screen that CGC is offering. I'm asking you also, you have slabs behind you.
Yeah.
So we'll get into slabs and raws and all of that, but what's your take on this new 9.9 pre-screen?
So my take on this is, as I understand it, Matt Nelson was on a podcast, but he did not bring that up intentionally. He was asked about it by the podcast host and started talking about it. But with that said, I really feel like timing is everything. And, the current temperature of CGC is not good. I really feel like they shouldn't be stirring the pot. They should be kind of calming the waters a little bit. So whether or not that's something they're going to do or not going to do, or he was asked a question, I personally would have avoided it, considering all these scams that are currently going on. It could have a huge impact on 9/8 on a lot of things, and I just think it's a little premature to bring that up. It just stirred the waters really, really bad for them.
Yeah, what do you think? So my biggest worry is that CGC is going to change the grading tiers, or they'll change over time. Do you think that by announcing a 9.9 pre-screen, do you believe that 9.9s will be more common, or is this just it's almost it almost just is like you said, it's a distraction and it's just something new. Like I don't even quite understand it, but my my fear is that 9.9s will be more common, which will drive the values down of all of the other grades. Do you believe that to be the case, or am I overthinking?
No, I don't think you're overthinking it at all. I mean, I have that fear too. And what happens to all the 9.8s that are out there that should have been 9.9s? There's a lot of discussion about that. Do we have to pay now to have our 9.8s, cracked open, regraded, and then I mean that's just
Yeah.
I can't even imagine doing that. I really think that they're going to have to think this one through. And then also, what are the other companies going to do? We have, EGS, CBCS, they're going to have to make a change as well.
Yeah.
The prospect of that frightens me, unless they're going to do it in such a way that it will not lower the value of 9.8. I mean, that just can't happen. I think it'll just crash the entire market for comics.
Okay. All right. Well, you made me feel a little better there. I'd say
Good, I'm
I,
glad.
I just felt like this whole time I'm trying to get 9.8s, and then now I need to get 9.9s. By the way, do you have any 9.9s?
I don't have any in my personal collection, but a lot of my customers have reached back out to me and said some of the books that they purchased look so good, they actually look like 9.9. And I've seen 9.9s, and when I'm grading books to prep them for CGC, oftentimes I think I have a 9.9 candidate, but it always comes back as a 9.8. So I really don't understand, are the graders there just not even looking for 9.9s, or are they just looking as high as a 9.8 and just stopping there and moving on? I don't know, but I don't have any. I'd like to have some, but I'm not looking for them. If it happens, it happens.
Yeah, same here. I have one. It's a foil, so that doesn't even count. But yeah, I've had a number of books where I have. Well, I'm sure you've seen this too with all of the slabs that you look at. But there's a 9.8 slab right next to another 9.8.
Yeah.
Same era, same paper quality. They're different.
Yeah.
One has spine ticks, sharp corners. The other one has sharp corners, no ticks. And it's like, why didn't this get a 9.9? And so that's part of my fear is like it's like they have a standard for 9.8, and then they're just going to be stricter for 9.9, or maybe I don't know. I'm not going to
Yeah.
try and pretend I'm a CGC grader, but I just kind of want to move on from the thought. I feel like it's just kind of like, look over here, there's a distraction,
Yeah.
more than it being like an actual service or thing that's going to change the market and change collecting.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, I really wish that he wouldn't have addressed that on the podcast. I think that was a
Yeah.
bad move. I mean,
Yeah.
look at what happened. Just answering a simple question like that created such a stir.
Right. Yeah. Speaking of creating a stir, we're kind of branching off into
Mhm.
other topics, and we're kind of creating our own timelines. I want to get back to the sacred timeline,
The sacred timeline.
Sure.
which is the theme of this discussion with you and around the FlipFlop Comics store in particular.
Okay.
And I wanted to start to ask you and get some insights around, what it's
Yeah.
like. And I thought maybe you could start off by just talking about maybe where did you get the idea from, or where were you inspired, or how were you inspired to start your own online comic book store?
Yeah, so, I think a lot of businesses start by solving a problem or out of frustration. And that's part of what led me to start FlipFlop Comics. But my passion for comics, my passion for business, and my passion for technology combined with my frustration as a collector with the low level uh, quality of customer service, packaging, shipping. I was becoming so frustrated and thought, I think I could do this better. And one day, just looking through my collection, I realized how many duplicates I had. And I thought it would be fun to start selling them online. And that's what started the journey for me.
So, could you talk a little bit more about like, do you have any specific examples of like some a frustration or a frustrating experience? Like, was there a tipping point, or did one thing happen, or was it just a culmination of a bunch of things?
Yeah, it was definitely a culmination of a bunch of things. I can't say it was one big thing, but like, for example, buying raw books from a seller that in the description says they're new mint, and they would be delivered to me and they wouldn't even be packaged properly. I would get comics in light bulb boxes, comics that weren't even, laying flat, and comics that were not bagged and or boarded,
Yeah.
and these are expensive comics. And I thought, why? Like, why are you cutting corners like this? It's just going to
Yeah.
hurt your business. I'm not going to be a repeat customer if that's your quality control. That just says a lot to me about how you run your business and how much you really care about the industry. You're more about making the buck. And that's not what we're about. We're about high quality, 5-star customer service, white glove service, and I'm really proud of that. And that's what we stand behind.
No, that's awesome. Now, I think that part of me feels like as someone that's tried this, you could do that and you could have sort of this approach around customer service and good, we'll get into like how you pack books and things as well, but like
Yeah.
choosing to pack your books in a particular way, branding, couldn't you have done all of this on eBay? Like, why did you decide to not use eBay for selling?
So actually, I started on eBay, and I do have an eBay store, and I like eBay. But for me, eBay has its uses, and one of the uses that I like with eBay is their international shipping program. So it allowed me to get more exposure worldwide, and I have, a nice number of clients that buy from me that I can't reach in the US. It's a little bit trickier on my online store selling internationally. It's
Mhm.
not difficult, I can do it, but I like the way eBay does it. So I do use eBay for that. But what really prompted me to move away from eBay for the majority of my business is the operating costs, the fees, and the limited flexibility with customization. You can't really use outside links in eBay. You're locked into their marketplace. There's not a
Right.
lot you can do. I use HTML to create a template for my listings. And, I was flagged a few times because I had worded something that, was outside of their terms of use. And it was frustrating. But the great thing is, I could actually operate my online store a lot cheaper than eBay. And I passed those savings on to my customers.
That's awesome. Now, I was going to say controversial to me in terms of selling, right? So you've made the decision to sell with a Shopify based platform. You talked about eBay live sales. I'm not a fan. And I know I'm in the minority. I think that the introduction, particularly during the pandemic,
Yeah.
of live claim sales, it really kind of took off. Uh, I have my opinions on live claim sales. I participate in some, but it's very rare. Have you thought about, you know, implementing some sort of live claim sale aspect into your store or business?
Yeah, I mean, never say never. My short answer is no. Um, I've purchased books from other sellers that do live sales, but I have an issue with some of the platforms that are out there, specifically how they operate. Um, and just personally, I mean, look, there's a lot of different things you can do to bring in revenue streams when you have an online store, and doing live sales is one of them. I mean, just personally, I think I'd want to invest more in my videography skills and get the right equipment. I mean, that's really not holding me back. It's just I'm not a big fan of it. And I know I've already said I don't like some of the platforms out there. It's just not something I'm interested in right now.
Yeah, it makes sense. I just feel like the live claim sales over time they become less about the comics and more about the seller or the show of it, because I think that's part of it is you have to have a certain kind of following and a certain type of personality for it. And I don't know, I've never really been interested in trying to like, I don't want to say push comics on people, but I feel like the whole life claim experience sometimes it just doesn't feel great. You
Yeah,
know,
I,
you're also like showing a book real fast and like, oh yeah, this is near mint, and you put it away. And I
yeah.
think if you're looking at, speaking of high quality photos, your photos of your products, your comics, your slabs are the best.
Oh,
They
thank you.
truly are amazing. Particularly, slabs are the most difficult thing to photograph.
They are.
And you're throwing up a live claim sale, and yeah, you can see a slab or you see a book. But when you go to flipflopcomics.com and you look at the product images, you as a buyer can sit there and really look at the detailed photo and make your decision, and really, like, I don't know, it's a different experience where you almost feel like I'm visiting you as a brick and mortar store.
I appreciate that. Thanks for that compliment. Yeah, we've worked really hard to refine that. And to, to go back to the question you asked of why I started the online store, that was another reason, the quality of the pictures and trying to look at a raw book and figuring out, the
Yeah.
corners or even the slabs. I know myself as a collector, there's nothing more frustrating than getting a slab delivered to you that's all scratched up and you didn't see that in the photo. But to circle back to the life sale comments, yeah, I feel the same way that it's a bit rushed and I don't know, it's like very like salesy, like somebody just has a whole bunch of comics, they just want to get rid of them and make money. Where I prefer to have like less is better. I want quality, and I'm just not interested in that side of the business.
Yeah, I think that the last thing I'll say about that is what's interesting to me is for a live claim sale, it feels like the seller is in a hurry.
Yeah,
And I think as a buyer, as a collector, I'm not in a hurry.
yeah,
I mean, yes, there's times where there's FOMO and there's other things like that. But when I talk about like not being in a hurry, like I say this on my channel often, like there's plenty of comic books. They're not going anywhere.
yeah,
Yes, that one specific issue that's in that one condition, you might feel some buyer's remorse or feel like you missed out or you're left out. But in general, as a collector, like if and even when I say the word collector, like it's a process for me. It's years and years of dedicating myself to the hobby and things like that. And when I get into a live claim sale like situation,
yeah,
I don't want to be rushed. I don't like the countdown. I don't That's why I said like going to your website or anywhere where I can just look at some books online. It feels I feel more comfortable that way. I mean, it would be, imagine going to a convention and you've
yeah,
got a flip-flop comics table, and you're like, "Hey, you've got 2 minutes to look at all my stuff and then get out of here." Like,
right,
like
right,
it
right.
it's not that's not how it works, and it just feels rushed. I'm like, why is the seller trying to rush me through this? But
Yeah,
yeah,
I
I
agree. Yeah, I agree 100%. It really cheapens the experience. And I know this happens on eBay too, but I can't stand the sniping. That 15 seconds are left and you have this book and then somebody just comes in and
oh,
that's it. You
you're
know,
bringing up a sore subject with me because I was in an auction last night and I got sniped on 3 books, and I'm still upset. But let's not. Yeah, now I don't want to be triggered over this.
okay.
No, I what I we
Great.
talked, like if I were to go to your store
Yeah.
and take a look, which I have, but like for those that haven't yet, could you talk about the kinds of comics that you specialize in? Like, do you have a particular style or favorite type? I mean, I'm looking at the books behind you, and I can certainly guess,
Yeah.
but would love to hear more about the kind of books that you're interested.
Yeah. So I specialize in the DC animated universe, also known as a DCAU, also the Timverse or Diniverse, which references Bruce Timm and Paul Dini. I love collecting and selling anything and everything that's related to Batman the Animated Series and all the associated spin-offs. Batman Beyond, Justice League Adventures, you name it, that's kind of my lane. But with that said, I mean, I love all comics, and I do, like to stock a good amount of Marvel and Dark Horse, Image, and all the other publishers as well.
All right, so I have to ask you, do you have a Batman Adventures 12, the first Harley Quinn?
Well, I wouldn't be much of a Batman animated series collector if I did not have that book. So yes, I do have it, and
Okay,
I
well, and
also
I know
have
Well, I was gonna
So
say we're beyond the spicy part, but
yeah,
maybe I'll add, is that Harley Quinn's first comic book appearance?
yes,
Okay.
yes,
I'm asking just because that there are some, not me, but there are
yeah.
some that would consider appearances in an animated, like not an animated comic book, obviously, but like a animated style comic book that maybe that's not canon.
Oh, okay.
Don't hurt me. I'm
No,
just
no, no.
asking, but like you know what I'm saying. Like
Yeah,
there's some that say that's not her first appearance. Most do, but I was wondering how you felt about it.
yeah. I mean, I feel like it's her first appearance. That's what DC backs and says in their fandom. So I stand by that.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right. Fair enough.
yeah,
Now, the one of the things that also fascinates me because it's shipping, like how comics are shipped in general.
yeah,
This is something that I believe you take great pride in, and I would love for you to talk about that. When I sell books, I just throw them up on eBay. Like I said, I'm not in a hurry to buy or sell.
yeah.
And I sent a book recently, and I got positive feedback. And the comment was that I needed to ease up on the bubble wrap and the tape. Like, what are you gonna do? It's just feedback. At least it
Right.
was positive, but I found that the person bought a pretty decent raw book, and I wanted to make sure that it was secured with cardboard. And so it is something that I think about in terms of, shipping comics the way that you'd want to receive them as a collector. And I know you
Yeah.
mentioned that as one of your frustrations. So how have you sort of solved that problem, at least for yourself, in terms of packing and shipping? Can you talk about like what your process is like there?
Yeah, that's a great question. Getting comic books to a collector safely and without damage is not easy to do. I mean, we're not in control of the carriers, first of all, and we know that they don't baby those packages. In fact, I think when you put fragile on a package, it gets beat up more when they see that. So I don't do that. But it surprises me that this topic is ignored by so many sellers. And I think it's one of the most important steps in the process of selling comics. I have worked on this, testing and refining my package and shipping procedure for the past 3 years. I'm really proud of what we're doing today. That's not to say that it's perfect. There's always room for improvement, and we're evolving as materials change and costs change, and all of those components factor in. But I'm proud to say that we've shipped packages all over the world and have had zero damage, zero books returned. I use a multi-layer system, and I want it to be fairly easy to open when people get it. I don't like to perform surgery on. I've received comics that are like just you almost have to damage the comic to open it, and
Yeah.
again, frustration. So I use a multi-layer system, and it's a system I'm really proud of, and I get a lot of positive feedback on. If you look at a lot of my feedback on eBay or even my website, most people reference the packaging, which tells me we're doing something right.
Yeah, awesome. No, I love hearing that. It's the whole like performing surgery. I
Oh,
think except for like some of my Mile High comics unboxings, which they've got it down pat. It's a
yeah,
full system there. The books that I get from even other online Shopify stores, the like I'm literally taking a blade and trying to cut
yeah,
through, and I had a recent unboxing where I cut through and I dinged the
yeah,
spine,
yeah.
and
I've done that too. Yeah,
it was not a big book, but like that's why I get so nervous. You shouldn't. It's like it's a delicate balance between shipping the books securely and getting them to their destination with no damage. And even if the carrier decides to look at the fragile and say, "Oh, that's an invitation for me
yeah,
to smash this," that
yeah,
even inside things will be okay. And you have to balance that with, what is the actual opening experience like? It's why I film the unboxings, is because this is what it's like as a collector to get these comics and how frustrating things can be. My nemesis is tapes, particularly Scotch tape. You can't peel it and all of that stuff. So I think we're kind of nerding out a little bit around shipping, and that's okay.
yeah, yeah.
I'd love to have you back on someday and really maybe go through not necessarily a tutorial, but really some of the details, because I think that people would find that very interesting to get into, like how to properly ship, what materials do you use, and so forth. But I want to, I'd like to move
Yeah,
on to get into a few other areas here before we wrap up. I was
sure.
curious about, like, in terms of running the store, you have day-to-day operations, you have what I would call real life, although I would like comic books to be real life sometimes.
Yeah.
But like, what is your biggest challenge that you face running an online store?
Yeah, that's another great question. I have to say my biggest challenge is inventory, sourcing it, pricing it, putting it in inventory, and posting it. It is all so time consuming. And I'm not manufacturing a product. So I have to source it each time. And I know there's a ton of comics out there, but trying to find a consistent, reliable source that I know I'm getting what's advertised is very challenging. So that basically makes inventory very challenging.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Totally. So with that challenge, I'm sure there are others too. I'm asking for a friend. If someone were interested in doing this, like I'm going to start selling online. I'm tired of, I know people call it Feebay. I'm
Yeah.
tired of the bigger sites and all of the limitations there. I want to sell myself, and I want to do this by, and it's not just Shopify, there's other platforms to sell on.
Yeah.
But if someone were interested in doing this, what would be kind of your top piece of advice that you?
Yeah. So, look, selling comics can be a lot of fun, and it is a lot of fun. But at the end of the day, you're running a business. So, the first piece of advice I would give is to take a business class if you haven't already, because you have to wear a lot of different hats when you run an e commerce business.
Yeah.
And it's really challenging if you're not familiar with, certain spaces, or you don't have expertise in certain areas. So it's important to understand how to run a business. And the second thing is, if you're not technically savvy, it is key, high priority to have somebody who can either be on your team or you can reach out to as a consultant that can help walk you through the complexities of running an e-commerce business, because there's a lot of technology involved and a lot of setup and a lot of different things you need to do, and it's important to know that up front.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I think this is why a lot of people do the live claim sales, right? It's just
Yeah,
I don't have to really treat this like a business. I can just
yeah,
show comics on my through my phone, and I'm selling it. Yeah, you're
yeah,
absolutely right. It's an approach like any other business. It just
right.
happens to be comics, something that you're passionate about. So it makes sense totally. And to kind of wrap up this part of the discussion, if people get to know you, or they're thinking about your brand, Flip Flop Comics, what is kind of like the one thing in terms of like when customers think about you? Do you want them to think about the Timverse, or like what is it that you would like, what as a kind of a takeaway as far as how customers feel about your brand and your store?
Yeah, I'd want them to think of honesty, trustworthy, integrity, and excellent customer service. I want them to think that I'm a seller that they can rely on and come back to. My goal is to retain customers and have them come back and have repeat customers.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are places that I will purchase comics from that I know are probably a little bit more on the higher end in terms of price and things like that. But yeah, it's the customer service, reliability, consistency, all of that. It's very
Exactly.
important as a buyer. And I think that sometimes that gets lost in, just I'm going to sell this book to you cheaper than the next person. Uh,
100%.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, we've reached that time, Gabriel. I think it's time that you show me yours. And what I mean by that, of course, is do you have maybe a comic book that you can share and tell a little bit about the book itself? Bring some awareness as far as like you as a collector, or why the book is interesting to you.
Yeah, actually, this one right here behind me. Let me grab it. So this is Detective Comics 448, and it was my first Batman comic. And I bought it at a local drugstore. I think my mom took me there, And I don't know if it was Batman that got me, or maybe Talia's boobs there, but I wanted this book desperately. And it's a great book. I love it. It's very sentimental to me. And, I scribbled all over it when I was a kid and just had a great time reading it over and over again. And as you can see, it's not in great shape at all, but I really don't care. I'm not slabbing it. It's just the sentimental value. The funny thing about this book is I was not only obsessed with Batman, but I was obsessed with the ads inside the comic book. Like get 100 army men for 50
Right.
cents, or send $1 in and get a bunch of posters. And I would do that. I would put money in an envelope and send in with the proof of purchase, but I never got anything back. Or the few times that I did, it was something that wasn't even in the ad and it didn't work. It was like some junky, piece of plastic toy. That is definitely my favorite comic.
That's awesome. So that's your original, the one
Yes.
that you got. That's so cool.
Yeah.
There's a number of those books too that they're so beat up that that you have to keep though for sentimental value.
Yeah.
I used to, when I was very young, I would trace the covers.
Yeah, I did
And
that too. Yeah.
I have. I mean, I think the one that comes to my X-Men 221. It's the first appearance of Mr. Sinister. My copy is faded, and you can actually, if you look at the cover and hold it to the light, you can see all of my tracing lines that I mashed into the cover, and I kept it. I love it. It takes me back. So that's very cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love the smell of the old comics. When you
Oh
open
yeah.
them up and you read through them, it's just
Oh,
great.
there's nothing better.
Yeah.
There's nothing better than smelling old comics, except for Rapid Fire.
Yes.
And we are here at Rapid Fire.
Okay.
I don't know if you're ready for this part, but
I'm ready. Let's do
okay.
it.
All right, here we go. Mainstream superhero or independent in terms of reading?
Mainstream superhero.
All right, I think I know the answer to this one. Marvel or DC?
DC.
Uh, Again, I think I know the answer. Batman or Superman?
Batman, but I love them both.
All right, now this one I don't know, but this is very important to me. It might be the most important question. Wonder Woman or Power Girl?
I think this says it all right here.
Oh,
Wonder Woman.
all right, that's cheating. Technically, that's cheating. So you've lost. And then the last one, raws or slabs?
Raws for reading and slabs for collecting.
Well, that you cheated again. That's not fair. You answered both.
I like to have one of each. I always like to have a slab, and then the actual book that I could read through and not be concerned about.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah.
But it is, we have reached the end game.
We're in the end game now.
So we are in the end game now, Gabriel. I appreciate you joining me. Would love to give you an opportunity just to kind of talk about FlipFlop Comics, any announcements that you have, or just what else is going on with your store currently.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. You can find us online at FlipFlopComics.com, also on Instagram at FlipFlopComics. And I want to thank all your viewers for tuning in. I'm offering them a 15% off coupon at my online store. And the coupon code is Moneyball Comics. And that's 15% off all slabs.
Wow, that's awesome. Thank you so much. You can see the code Moneyball Comics there at the bottom, 15% off on your store. That's very cool, Gabriel. I appreciate it. I would love to have you back on to get into some of the finer details around this process. Because
sounds great.
I do feel like there's a lot of stores that are established that are doing things like store exclusives, pre-ordering, and things of that nature. But I think that you're using the platform in a way that a lot of us would like to use, or we would kind of prefer to sell this way. And so I really appreciate you sharing your insights, and I would love to have you back on to get into some of the finer details and the topics, and just see how things are going in terms of sales, particularly as the comic book market, kind of goes up and down, corrects and things like that. I would
Yeah,
love to see kind of get into some of the numbers with you, but it was a pleasure talking with you, and
likewise.
would love to have you back on.
Yeah, anytime. I look forward to it, Brendan. Thanks again, and hope you have a great day.
Awesome. All right. Well, there we have it. The first episode of the top 30. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with FlipFlop Comics. Make sure you take advantage of that coupon code. Uh, I think if nothing else, go to flipflopcomics.com and check out the photos of the products. Just outstanding. It actually inspired me to try and take better photos of my own raws and slabs as well. But great conversation with Gabriel. And if you like this and would like to see more, feel free to leave a comment. Would love to get your feedback on this. Thanks for watching. Happy collecting, and see you next time.